Cartaventura, Vinland. This is the first game that I played in the Cartaventura system, which is a story-driven system based on a system that is very similar to what you may have seen in Seventh Continent, which is there's a story, a choose-your-own-adventure kind of story, but it is printed on a deck of cards instead of an actual book, and you flip cards and you read the text and you make decisions that will direct you to other cards. So on one hand, technologically, pluses and minuses, of course. The minus is when you finish an adventure and you want to start another one, you have to reorganize the set and put it back together in the right order, as opposed to if you have a choose your own adventure book, you just go to wherever you had inserted a finger as a bookmark, as we all do when we read those books. On the plus side, the fact that these cards, again, they're not connected to each other, means that they can be organized to create a tableau on the table. And matter of fact, this game has to do with exploration, and so the choice of using cards means that you can create maps, and those maps can change as you're told to add new cards around the present map when you explore new areas, when you reach new areas. And also the cards can be used as game components to keep track of different things. Here, for example, I don't think it's a spoiler because it's right there at the beginning of the game, you will play the role of multiple members of the same Viking family as they do different things and they explore the land, and also you'll be using the favor of the gods. So you have cards representing the favor of the gods, and when you have the favor as a stored resource that you can use, the card is face up. When you use it, it goes face down. Or when there's a game effect that exhausts it, that rejuvenates it. That's the way it works. So pluses and minuses there in using the card deck as opposed to a book for what is in essence a choose-your-own-adventure book. That's just the idea. And I know this may be controversial. Not everybody likes the idea of games just being mainly a storytelling experience because this is what it is. I personally like them very much. I have a whole playlist on my channel about paragraph-based games, so you know that I like the idea of text-heavy games. They're not very social, maybe, but I don't mind about that either because I play them solitaire, and that's the way I played this game. It says here that you could play 1 to 6 players. I don't know that having 6 people on the table with these cards on the table, one player reading the story and everybody making decisions together, I don't know that that's going to be very compelling. So as a solo adventure, I personally enjoyed it, but again, I see how some of you may even not consider this a full game, but that's fine. Then think of this review as the review of a choose-your-own-adventure book, of a fighting fantasy book, of a lone wolf book, all of which I have described in my video, so that's the idea. Now, the game system is one that I like, as I said, because I liked it in Seventh Continent, and despite the annoyance of having to reset the deck, I like the visual advantages. On top of that, the game is also pretty richly illustrated. You do have a lot of pieces of unique art representing different characters, locations, the cards with the favor of the gods are particularly interesting. And so I like the system. Now we need to talk specific about the execution of this title in the system, which is Vinland. As I said, you play the role of different characters, and when I realized that to me was really less compelling because you start the story as one character, and I'm looking for that narrative arc, I'm looking for that development, and it gets to a point where then you switch to somebody else and you basically start a connected story. Maybe there will be even more characters coming in later, who knows? Maybe toward the very end, who knows? And so to me that was an interruption. I like my stories to be complex and to have, again, a certain development. And it almost felt like this was 2 short stories, so almost like a short story and a novella sort of thing. And to me that was just not super compelling. When it comes to the branching tree of options, I found that also quite limited because ultimately You have 70 cards in here, and they're double-sided, so you can think of 140 containers of content, paragraphs, again, sections. And some will be mainly an illustration that tells you if you do this or if you do that, if you interact with this person this way or that way. And one option will tell you flip the card to the other side, and the other one will say go somewhere else. So you have 140, but some of those are just the intersections that tell you where to go. So in truth, there isn't a lot of room simply to develop a story. It feels to me that it carries, I haven't counted, but that the story carries a little less content than a traditional choose your own adventure book. And so splitting that into multiple things just doesn't give you a lot of room to create a narrative branching tree that you can explore in different directions. Matter of fact, some of those directions are insta-death, which is just not fun, and I don't think we were doing that anymore in board games, but they're doing it here. And it's just disappointing that you go to a place and you flip it, oh, and now you're dead. And then you want to go somewhere else, but then it's not satisfying. You don't feel like you experience so many different stories. And with the exception of the insta-death, although the story, we're told that there are like 5 multiple endings. Again, if you look at Choose Your Own Adventure books, that is very little. That's very few. That makes for not many branches there. Again, you can consider the insta-death as each insta-death as an ending, not like a true main ending. But still, you're gonna have not so many. I think it's less than the average Choose Your Own Adventure book that tended to have 15, 20 endings. So the problem that I had with the specific implementation of Vinland, with the specific implementation of the game system, is that it felt like a Choose Your Own Adventure book where you didn't make so many choices that really mattered. It felt pretty railroaded and it felt pretty linear. Maybe you go one way and you're told, yeah, no, nothing happens here, go somewhere else. Another thing, the tone of the story, it felt very didactic. There is something about it that I felt they wanted to be historically accurate, which is a value. They throw in some supernatural in there, and that's another weird thing because it almost feels like a didactic book with some new supernatural sprinkled in it to make it a little more exciting. But it is weird. It's weird. It feels like almost like a lecture in Choose Your Own Adventure book through cards format. There's something in there that they couldn't quite get past it. They couldn't quite get a strong connection with the story because I felt that I was being just lectured about the cultural things that were happening in the community described here. And so when you put all these things together, you probably started figuring out that although I like the idea of a Choose Your Own Adventure book in card format, I just didn't particularly care for this implementation. I just couldn't get passionate about it. When I started getting passionate, that story ended and another one started from scratch with the same, again, limited options, with the same almost didactic tone. And again, if you are a teacher and you want to teach the students about this culture, about these explorations, about the things that happen here, I have to be vague and I haven't shown you any component because I don't want to give you spoilers. As a teacher, well, that may work. You expose your students to this content, but then you have to put a disclaimer, hey, those monsters weren't really there, as far as we can tell. And so, I like the idea. I was very excited when I started playing it, but the experience overall felt pretty underwhelming. However, I also have another game in the same system, Cartaventura Laza, and I'm going to tell you about this one in a review in the near future. And who knows, maybe I like this one better. But Vinland wasn't particularly exciting.